But Ferrari, they still maintain price exclusivity because even if people want to spend $800,000 or $600,000 on a car, you can't put that on a credit card and you can't pay. Like, it's a house or apartment, right?
One of the world's most iconic car companies, Porsche, has had a torrid time. Have you got a Porsche?
What did I tell you about Porsche? I refuse to drive a car that has the name of Hitler's best mate on the back of it.
Ferdinand Porsche.
Yeah.
They were actually started by the Nazi party, basically.
Yeah.
And so Porsche and Volkswagen have that torrid sort of history. Although
I think I would be open to be persuaded on that because it is different now. And if the guy who runs it now came out and said, we disown Ferdinand.
I think they did that.
I don't think they've disowned him. There was a Jewish co-founder that got completely shafted.
Yeah, the third co-founder.
I mean,
but Volkswagen
I'm
itself,
not very happy
because obviously there's the Volkswagen Porsche thing, and Volkswagen itself got bought by the British, got it, and so Volkswagen sort of cleansed to it.
Yeah, what you're basically saying is Volkswagen has been purified of its Nazi roots, and given that they own Porsche, I should feel fine with it.
Pretty much.
Okay, and I know, and I accept that, and I accept that argument.
It is
I've just got a visceral argument, but I might get over it one day, and I'll just be totally a hypocrite. It's definitely possible.
When you drive your Taycan in next week, but so Porsche had a torrid time. Its share price has fallen to I say it's a record low because they only refloated recently. Obviously, it was a lot lower than that 30 years ago, but it's dropped 50% this year, and it's down 27% from its 2022 float price, and its market cap is now only euro 27 billion. I say that only because it was double that compared to other car.
You mean Porsche? You mean this whole Volkswagen group, or is Porsche's floated separately?
The Volkswagen thing in a second. So Porsche's problems have led to a big problem. Have really been led by the Taycan. So Taycan was our EV, a cool looking EV, and
not as good. I think I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't buy EVs for many reasons. One of which is I've just got range issues, it's like emotion. But like if you look online, people will say the finish and stuff inside the Audi version of it, whatever that's called, is people prefer it to the Taycan.
I think people love the Taycan who have it, but it's very expensive.
It looks very nice.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Porsche sold 42,000 in 2019, sorry, 40,000 in 2021. Dropped to 25,000 in 22, back to 41,000 in 23, and down to 14,000.
Really? I see them everywhere. What are they all being sold in Melbourne?
They must be.
Like,
I think Porsche does well in Australia.
I don't see any of the Audi one anywhere.
Yeah. So Porsche has an unusual cross shareholding. So Volkswagen, and this came from the way there's this whole long backstory. Basically, the Porsche family got control of both businesses in 2008 as a result of the then CEO, Wiedeking, is doing this massive stuff up. Basically, he over-leveraged himself and they got it for free or something. Almost got it. It was just an amazing, the acquired guys.
It was like the Piche family or whatever they're called, right?
It's Piche and Porsche. It basically was the daughter is the Piche and the son of Ferdinand's the Porsche. And I think the Piche guy was the one who sort of did all that
It's
stuff.
like not to compare them in any way to these people, but it's like the Spotlight and a kind of Freed and Frayed. It's the same family, but different variations of the name when they kind of...
Well, that was a different reason. One was rather marriage.
Anglicised as well.
No, someone spelt it wrong on the thing.
Yeah.
So VW owns 75% of Porsche. As a result, they sort of spun it out in 2021 or whatever. But as a result, because Porsche's price has been smashed, VW's price has been smashed. So the value of VW's stake in Porsche has dropped 30 billion euros, which is a bit of a problem given VW is only worth now 45 billion euros. It was up to over 100 at one point.
Do you know what VW's earnings are on that 45 billion of market cap?
It makes like 9 billion euros.
Right, so it's pretty cheap.
It's unbelievable.
Unless it's full of debt.
There probably is a bit of debt there, but
but not $20 billion.
Not that much. So it's like kind of 5 times PE multiple. This is just like insane. It was less than 5 times. So just as a comparison here, Tesla delivered earnings of 5 billion over the last 9 months, helped by a bunch of subsidies. So it's actually less than 5 billion. So it tells us Tesla's real earnings less. It is worth like more than $1 billion. So it's more than 20 times the valuation on less earnings. And you've got another really interesting Ferrari, which is, and the acquired guys talk about this great on that episode, how Ferrari has like double the gross operating margin of any other car company. It's by far the best run car business. And that's now worth 83 billion euros. Yeah. So Ferrari's the only car company.
There's no price sensitivity on Ferrari.
Exactly. That's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do you explain the differing, like, so you got Volkswagen, which owns Porsche and Lamborghini and Bentley, and then Ferrari, which is, they're all kind of luxury car. How does Ferrari forget Tesla, which is just like batshit crazy valuation, but like VW versus Ferrari, how is Porsche versus Ferrari more so? Porsche has got pretty good, Porsche sold the LVMH to Ferrari's Hermes. How is it possible that there's such a difference in valuation here?
Well, the thing, so I will say with Tesla, we say this all the time, like it's a religion, so it doesn't follow economic rules, but also we have to give them credit. Like there are, when Hamilton Helmer does his 7 powers, the way he starts it is by saying there's 2 drivers of how a company is going to be valued. Like the second one is to do with their market share and the margins they can achieve. But the first one is the TAM and how fast the TAM is growing. Almost no company has any impact over that, but Elon Musk did with electric cars. He drove the growth of the TAM in electric cars more than almost anybody you can. Maybe Henry Ford did it with cars in the first place, drove the growth of TAM. But Elon Musk, for everything else that you want to say about him, the guy basically accelerated and he pioneered a direct-to-consumer e-commerce business with cars, which nobody else has been able to replicate to this day.
That's all amazing, just the valuation.
Yeah, I agree. But we don't, and also personally, I don't think the finishes on the cars are good, but that's a separate issue. So what do I think about Ferrari? This is what I think.
Well, Ferrari versus Porsche, if anything else.
So the first thing to say about that is...
Would you buy a Ferrari?
No. This is all this is just retail business. And they're retail business that have to sell through the weirdest kind of third-party distribution that has ever existed in a retail business, where they're independent businesses with their brand that have a strange way of buying cars, which is financed, and when they sit on the lot, like it's a very complicated model.
Own, like some,
they do.
Like BMW owns some dealerships, and like so they're not 100% franchise.
It's a very complicated model, okay? And like Mercedes has just gone through this whole process of doing some things to their dealers that the dealers did not like at all, and like basically people want the dealers. Car companies want the dealers to have a footprint for their brand and to sell. They just don't like the idea of having to pay the dealers for that privilege. And so
dealers make a lot more than car companies in Australia, which is really bizarre.
Yeah, that's true. And so I think in retail, one of the most important things, maybe the most important, is gross margin.
Yeah.
And Ferrari, what you're saying is their fundamental differentiation is gross margin, which is true. And so I think it is absolute. And so let's assume that CAC is going
to... Ferrari is this uber luxury brand, but Porsche's, like the Porsche 911 is as good a vehicle as ever been made.
But Porsche's never, the Porsche brand, well, there are many things that drive a luxury brand. Like exclusivity was historically one of those things. So you might argue now that like Hermes, for example, like it's in every airport, it's everywhere. And so they sell hundreds.
You still can't buy Birkin or Kelly. So
and so that's a smart way they've kept the exclusivity.
You just buy the scarf.
Yeah. Because, price exclusivity is rare. And I think Hermes does not have price exclusivity in the way it did 20 years ago, because people are much more willing today to take out a credit card and pay obscene amounts of money for an item. But Ferrari, they still maintain price exclusivity, because even if people want to spend $800,000 or $600,000 on a car, you can't put that on a credit card and you can't pay. Like it's a house or apartment, right? And so I think they've maintained exclusivity on price in a way that most other brands are not able to, because they're an order of magnitude more expensive than most other luxury brands.
They certainly never did the SUVs. Like obviously Porsche made a huge amount of money in the early 2000s since the...
Well, Aston Martin has done an SUV, but they've maintained the price exclusivity.
That's Tater, isn't it? Aston Martin, is that right? Who owns Aston Martin?
I don't know. But so their SUV has not negatively impacted the perception of their brand, because it's quite nice looking and unbelievably expensive. It's like $300,000 or $400,000.
Aston Martin's owned by Lawrence Stroll, Canadian.
Oh, how could we not know that?
Yeah,
his son, the Formula One driver, courtesy of the dad owning the brand.
So what's the son's name again?
Oh, I can't remember. And the daughter just married recently an Australian snowboarder or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Scotty James.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll.
Yeah. How can we forget this? They should be making a Netflix show on this family.
Yeah.
And so I think Aston Martin has done an SUV and preserved its brand.
There's not many Aston Martin SUVs, in fairness.
And Lamborghini has done an SUV.
Disgusting. That is just horrific.
But what does it cost? $800K?
Does it?
I don't know, something like that.
I think it's a lot less than that.
So I don't think that's damaged their brand.
And Lamborghini's owned by, who owns Lambo again?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's the Porsche guys must own Lambo. I think
Volkswagen.
Yeah, Volkswagen owns Lambo.
Oh, do they? I did not know that. Yeah. So I think Ferrari has been able to, I don't think it's a lack of an SUV. They could launch an SUV and charge $600,000 for it.
Shouldn't.
That would be fine, because it's still price exclusivity. The thing is, you can't pretend to be rich and own a Ferrari, a second-hand one maybe, you know, but you can't buy a new Ferrari pretending to be rich. Like you got to either be rich or be conducting some kind of fraud that makes you rich for a period of time. So I think that is how it's maintained some exclusivity. But ultimately, if you're saying to me, if we take everything else out of the equation, CAC and so forth, would I pay a higher multiple for a brand with much higher gross margin? Absolutely, I would in retail. Yes, absolutely. Their ability to leverage that into higher profit margins, the ability for that to protect them against economic downturns, absolutely. I definitely think higher gross margins deserve a higher multiple.
So just that Ferrari's gross margin in 2019 was 52, then 51, then 48, then 51, then 50. So it's maintained that 50% gross margin.
So a bad gross margin for a direct-to-consumer brand, but this is not a direct-to-consumer brand. And also, it's a pretty good gross margin on $800,000 of car. And so...
Porsche's 29%, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And so, like, if you're saying to me, would I pay much more for a business that has a 70% more gross margin than business two? Absolutely, I would, especially when your basket size is measured in these numbers.
Tesla's, by the way, like 15%.
Yeah.
Or even lower.
I'm surprised to hear that.
It's... It goes to your point on Tesla being a religion and not really having any justification in share price.